Hello, hello. I am back. This is the second live that I have done today. I did one earlier on a same topic. I did change a little bit up, and I'll tell you why. There was a technical issue in the last live, so I missed out on some of my notes and content, so I just want to make sure that I give it another attempt so that I can make sure that I cover all of the pieces that should be in here today. So I appreciate you taking your time, and of course, we're gonna hope for a little bit better tech this time. But anyway, I just want to thank you for joining me here. I'm actually live on Instagram, and then I'm also live in Clubhouse. So that was something I couldn't do earlier either. So I'm glad that I'm able to do both at the same time and share some of this information with you. I know that, like, what I love about the live energy of a feed, even if nobody's in the room at the time or there's hundreds of people in a room at a time, what's really cool is you just get to show up and be in a specific energy and see who's attracted. And then what I love too is the ability to be able to post that and then have somebody tap into that down several timelines. So in the future, so if you are watching this in the future, let me know, because I want to know what's going on. And I'm always thinking about the future and our future selves, and that's a huge part of innovation. You really are living on multiple timelines at once as you see the possibilities for the world, and then also recognize what's here, what can change, and what you can utilize. So I wanted to go live today to share more about what I've been working on for the past, say, several months, but it's been incubating. But more recently, I put some more work behind the modeling behind it, research, and it's an evolved concept of everyday innovation, and that may be something that you've heard from me before, the hashtag. And it really started out as a space for experimentation, for me to explore the process of innovation and learn more about the systems behind innovation that we can learn from and apply to our own work and to our own lives. So the evolution of everyday innovation has become something a little broader, and I wanted to bring in a few metaphors and kind of tie in why now. But I believe that the vision behind this is something that we can all get behind, and it will create opportunities for us to collaborate and to create more wealth and more change, positive impact overall, because this is the time, and innovation really is about growth, change, operating, like I said, in those multiple realities. Being able to work in that sort of a way really is kind of very quantum physics type energy when you are working on multiple timelines and you're able to slice ripple effect down into these little manifestations that we carry out every day, whether we realize it or not. We are always creating impact. We may not be realizing the decisions that we're making are affecting other people or affecting the systems at large, but they are. And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of positive empowerment in that, especially now, because we are at a time that is so crucial to take advantage of for the empowerment of the individual and of the creator. But first, I want to get into, I called this the butterfly effect, and there is a simple reason behind it, in that, of course, we all know that the butterfly effect does always align with the small changes have a larger impact on the systems at large. But it originates from chaos theory. So if you don't know what necessarily chaos theory is, it's that the things that seem random, that they're unpredictable, that there's disorder, tend to have identifiable patterns under them that are sensitive to change. So a lot of the things that we find chaotic or unpredictable, or innovation itself is considered something that's hard to kind of pin down or understand. It's because there are these many moving parts where there are, again, those micro manifestations and changes happening. And another reason is because a lot of innovation comes from the human, right? And we are not built as a system. We work with systems, but we are not a system. We operate in ways that are way less predictable than maybe we think in actual life when we're seeing other people. There are facets in our life, there are perspectives, there are downloads from years and years of experience, from your spirituality, from your beliefs, from your identity, that make your particular view just off and just disruptive enough to create those micro changes. And we see it all the time, just in, when there's any sort of thought leadership or virality online, or the changes that have happened, we've seen in the financial institutions or in social justice, that come from a small group of people who are seeing something a little bit differently and are able to express in a way that translates and is relatable to a larger group. So basically, in covering like the butterfly theory and chaos theory, it's really less about these little changes and worrying about what happens, in the future. It's just taking into consideration that even in innovation, again, there are so many pieces that are always moving. There's so many pieces in social innovation, in our society, in our relationships that are moving, and with humans at the backbone of it, the ones that are the creators of these changes, right? These creations, manifestations, ideas. It's always going to be predictable because innovation is uniquely human. The genesis is uniquely human. But with that said, we have to be aware of what that means for us. Like I said, that it is the creator economy now. I'm sure you've heard that term many, many times. And it is the empowerment, primarily the economic empowerment of the individual, but truly it is the impact of the individual that is so notable. Again, because of the ability of social media to drive a particular message, to have software that's now met up with the ideas that people have without having to get the funding to need to do them. All these no-code platforms and other types of companies that are offering services of distribution of digital products, or ability to enter a market with less barrier to entry, with less money, with less time and other resources that maybe most solopreneurs or small business owners or artists wouldn't necessarily have. So in knowing that, what's important going forward is understanding not only is the whole world looking at creators, companies are starting to hire for positions to cater to creators. They are creating monetization, which is wonderful, but then also there is the concern that in the future, the ownership of creator content and what the production that we're making online, the impact that we're making, is going to be monetized in a way that is not in the favor of the individual. You've seen it probably in many, many spaces. I used to work in the music industry. It's one of the toughest industries to be in on either side. Really, if you have an understanding of how it works. And there are some times where people are taken advantage of, or art is taken advantage of, or the value that someone is bringing to reach people can be taken advantage of because it has such a cultural impact. Music has such a cultural impact. Art has such a cultural impact. And now more people can bring their passions into these spaces. So even if you're obsessed with collecting certain types of cards and you are able to do a lot of research and create content around that and inform people and teach people about these cards, these collector cards, whatever that may be, you are now a source of attention for the world. And attention, we still are in the attention economy too, where attention typically means dollars. But going forward, attention is not going to be enough. It's great to grow followings, but creators are moving more toward having their own platforms, in understanding their value and unique role, so in monetization. And of course, I have to bring in innovation, because if these companies are looking for the value in what you're creating, that is part of the innovation process. What you create is often something that changes how we do things. And innovation really is a lot about the process and the implementation in the systems of how we change what we're doing. What have we introduced so that we do that differently in the future, more efficiently, better, kinder, more sustainably. So we creators, I'm saying creators, individuals, are now a source of intellectual property, and we're a source of innovation and innovation inspiration. So that's very exciting in the sense of being able to work and leverage that in the larger economy. But at the same time, it's also so important to be educated on the innovation process and educated on your unique strengths there and what you would like to develop and your process, your design process, because that'll allow you to understand the value in the transactional piece of working with brands or companies, with being on particular platforms, with really honestly just understanding the market value, quote unquote, of what you're doing. And that'll make the creators of our world, all of us individuals, better at creating more wealth for the collective. And the definition of creator, I know, is sometimes like skewed a little bit toward content creators or media in general, and even just publications like writing and, you know, those types of forms where it's a lot more about community and entertainment. But I do feel that deep down, we're all creators as the individual, in the individual sense. It really is our birthright as humans. It's something unique that we have, is this, that first spark of the innovation process where we're able to magnetize and pull in all of these unique insights and create solutions that have never been thought of and have never been, you know, conceived of until it happens. It's that great quote of everything seems impossible until it's done, right? And I think that that's close, right? But basically the ethos is the same. It's just that if there's no innovation without some human inspiration, and we see it all the time. It's not just the people who are graduating from the top schools anymore, or it's not just the most wealthy or the most imbibed in research, whatever that would be. It's now people are able to innovate at a level where they can create that impact in a ripple effect more easily than if I guess, in the past, where maybe you would need more of a circle of influence to do that. So with all of that being said, as creators, as we're natural creators and we are creating at all points, at any time we're creating impact, and we want to take ownership of our process and understand that so that we can be more mindful in the impact we're creating and create more wealth for ourselves, for the collective in general. It's important that we take into account how we best work and how we give most to each part of the innovation process. And I'm going to jump into a little bit of a model that I've been working on for the creator-led innovation process framework. But I do want to mention another butterfly reference that may be interesting to some of you, but there are, I just learned this not too long, but I learned that there are these cells called imaginal cells, and they come up when the caterpillar / butterfly is in the chrysalis stage, so that it's in the cocoon and it has melted down from the caterpillar. And there are these cells that are operating independently, vibrating, working, and independently doing their thing, right? They're working non-collaboratively at all. They're just working in their process. And then what happens is there's a certain critical turning point when they start to merge together, and the collective design and collective thought piece of that, where it connects all of these systems together, create the butterfly. And I just love that metaphor because it really does lean towards the power of these individual pieces that, out of a complete mess, out of something that is from an entirely old paradigm and way of being, literally, you're able to break it down. Everyone is working from their core competencies, or their piece, their individual piece, and then things start to form and to make sense, and then together becomes something completely different. And it certainly feels like we're in a time that is like that, right? It feels like there are all of these paradigm shifts that are happening, and we should be aware of it and take advantage of it. So I want to share a little bit more about this process, and the motivation behind it is really, it's a combination of just a lot of strategy and models that you would study, and then there's the kind of combination with life design and what you would think of as like design thinking, or even systems thinking in certain aspects, product development. But there is a kind of process that is general in any sort of innovation activity, even if it's just putting something out that might be a thought starter, or a something that would be viral because of the way that people would look at things after, for example. You can break it down to something even as simple as that, or a simple upgrade in a system. But in general, we want to, again, because innovation is a process, we have to focus on what our process is and how we can develop that. So I'm going to see how this works now, but I'm going to pull up a little framework, and it'll just kind of play through a bit, and I'll describe it. But it really is acting as the guide within which, and the container within which, we can design our own process. So this is not somebody telling you how to do any part of the innovation process. It's not telling you how to do it. It's really opening the space of, here's a framework of something that is probably very widely accepted and can be broken down in several different ways, and you can go and experiment and work with resources, work with experts, work with your own skills and capabilities, find new practices that develop skills or develop certain mindset pieces that feed into that. But you can develop your process and adjust it as needed without feeling like you're taking the system of somebody or an innovator that you admire, but maybe isn't really they're not the same as you. They're not aligned necessarily. You may have the same ethos, but you may not work the same way, or you may not believe all the same things. So you're going to have some disconnects there. You have a different background. You may have a different education, a different social environment that you grew up in. And those things do affect the way that we see the world. And it's important to honor that, because truly especially now when we're in our most authentic state and embodied state of being, we create the most impact, we do the most when we can be embodied. When it's from our identity and our beliefs, we can take action and continue to take action sustainably over time, because it's in flow with what we want from our lives. And then with that, if we're all doing that collectively, that ends up becoming way, way, way more impactful. So I'm going to jump into this. So let me pull it up just a moment. Let's see if this is it. Okay, yes. So this is more of the container. It's going to go through several times, so I'll just let it play. I think in Clubhouse there may be somebody, so I'm so sorry I don't have the visual there, but I can definitely explain it. So really breaking down the steps of innovation in the most general sense, or what you would think of as the most general sense. Innovation really is about, again, a process. It is about creating something, putting it into a space where people can interact with it and implement it into a system, and then measuring that impact. If there is a certain impact, or there's an adoption of this idea or this product or this new way of doing things, that's where you get more information to continue to innovate or to do other types of work, because you're getting the feedback. So all of it is really important. I think a lot of people focus on the more, I call it the more creative or design piece of innovation, when really it goes throughout the entire system. And this, again, doesn't have to just be for products or services, or if you're an entrepreneur, you can think about this in a lot of different ways. Even if you're creating, let's say you're creating types of art, but there is a certain message behind it, or you're doing it in a different way that you hope to open up some more doors or channels for other artists, for example, or open up a new conversation on how to execute what you're doing. Whatever that may be, there's so many different ways that you can use this kind of more generalized system, and then of course niche it down and adjust it based on your situation and how you're applying it, and then just based on you, right? So again, the three pieces are, I called it the creation, the experience, and the impact. So the creation is going to be what you would think of as like the ideation and the brainstorming and all of the pieces that you can break down into that get more specific into certain industries or types of work. But that's the ideation kind of piece. There's design, of course, where you are kind of designing the solution that you're creating, or designing, planning the piece that you're going to be making, or what is it that you're actually going to execute on. The composition, which I call it composition as opposed to like development or building, because composition really is pulling the pieces together and putting it into something that's of form. So sometimes it doesn't feel right when you're saying you're building a book or something, or you're building a new way to provide a service. It may seem kind of counterintuitive to say that. So sometimes composition is nice as well, because you're allowed to kind of play with that in a way where you don't have to think so physically or think about a product. Then moving into the experience piece, experience is really more about where that touch point is, where the creation itself meets the market, meets interaction points, meets the system that it's going to potentially change and potentially affect along the line. If you have the creation, but you're not really putting it anywhere where it can make some sort of an impact or change the course of anything else, then it's tough to really understand what its impact is. So in the experience piece, I took the aspect of implementation as part of it. So implementing it into a system, distributing it in a certain way, implementing something, meaning, so that this could kind of go implementation, communication, but onboarding somebody into it, explaining it, teaching it to them. Communication being, of course, like what you would think of as marketing, storytelling. Storytelling is a huge piece of it. The communication of your creation in general, how you're getting people to be magnetized toward it, to want it, to want to be a part of your revolution, whatever that may be, to want to, change something in the PTA meeting so they don't do it the same way ever again. I mean, I'm just saying that you can even apply it to things like that. The truth is that communication, the experience of whatever you've thought of, what you've created, and then taking it into the next space where people are interacting with it, the market's interacting with it, it's going to be where it's implemented, how it's implemented, and then the communication of it. Because if both of those are missing, then the creation doesn't really get to connect with anyone else. And then the creation is kind of embedded into the experience. So when you're actually creating, if you're kind of going up and down, you would think, okay, well, wouldn't you think of some of the implementation or communication as you're creating it? Yes, I think you always you want to think of great impact, right? And that's the last piece. So you're kind of working your way back, in a way, thinking ahead. That's strategic thinking. So you want to be thinking ahead like that. But I tend to put let's say the communication or the experiential piece, even if the creation is very much a part of the experience, it's really that point when it's not really an experience until someone experiences, right? It's not an experience if it's you and your thing, and then there's kind of no one else or nothing else to react to it or for it to have an impact on someone. So anyway, and then moving into the impact piece, right? Impact, I think, is highly underrated too, because we will look at it as kind of an after effect as opposed to part of the process. So when you're trying to create impact, obviously most people would say, okay, I've put out something and I'm looking at like the social analytics or whatever that might be, or you're thinking of a business. But even if you're just measuring a change that you've made somewhere and just looking at who else has adopted it, right? And how has it created a potential ripple effect of people creating something because they were inspired by it. Or like I said earlier, there's a certain level of influence and virality that is available to a lot of creators now. And it doesn't just have to be the silly stuff. It can be things that are very relatable and that are incredibly helpful or connective in a way. So that is something to be aware of as well. It's not just about, okay, it's the social analytics that'll feed back into the process and feed back into how it would content create or how you would communicate that launch next time, whatever that would be. It's really more about how is the ripple effect happening, and how can you not only just create more sales, but create more creation from it, if that makes sense. So the impact can be applied in many different ways, but it's really kind of just understanding the measurement of it. What are you actually what are you defining as impact? And then the analysis of it is just how are you analyzing? Are you getting feedback? Is there like analytics that you're getting? And analysis is not just about numbers. It's about how looking at the result, the reaction to the first two pieces, right? So there are lots of things within these that you can develop over time. Again, these are very, very general, right? But as you break it down into like skills and theories and models and experimental trials that you can do for yourself and implement in habits, whatever you'd like to call them, or practices, that's where you can get into some real magic in playing with designing your own system. So if you have kind of these pieces and you're looking at them, and you, again, in future content, there'll be a lot more on the strategy behind choosing some of these tools, right? And the strategy behind assessing kind of where you're at and where you'd like to grow and what season you're in. Because the truth is, you can innovate in any of this is an innovation process, but you can also innovate within a lot of these spaces as well. It's not just like these layers. It's really kind of, yes, this is an innovation process, but then you can also be a really great marketer, and you can be an innovator in the space of specifically communicating in a way with audiences, right? So we always play these kind of multiple roles. But the point is that you want to look at your process and in the general process and what skills you have, what areas seem to have more or less flow, you have more or less confidence in, what things can bolster it. So a lot of what people say is like the biggest trait of innovators is like a certain curiosity, right? Wanting to learn, wanting to ask questions, and seeking those answers, and then deciding from there whether it's something to pursue and dig deeper in, or if it's something where you end up working with an expert. But at the same time, understanding that it's not a limitation of yours, it's really just you're not in that space, or you're not in that place to innovate, right? And no one is innovating in every single space of this process, like ever. Most of the time we're operating at any given moment, we're operating through all of them, but we're really only focused on a piece of this, or there's a piece that's going to be standing out to you, or a couple pieces that are standing out to you more than others, because they're either something that you need to work on, or it could just be something because the stage of a project that you're doing, or whatever it may be. It could just be a new hobby and there's creative blocks, and it's a source of release, emotional expression for you, and you want to work through that and find new ways to be inspired to write more songs, whatever that might be. So the little bar that's across the top that goes by, that's kind of the overarching, call it the context of the system. So let's say you have this process and you're working through and you're building it. There's going to be these overarching themes that are going to shape it and adjust it, right? So your identity is going to be like at the core. It's going to be a lot of the self. So it's going to be your identity, your values, your competencies, and then also your circumstances and your environment. And also, if you're like starting to apply this more to a business or an industry, you're going to say, okay, here's my process. But then if I'm doing this process in this context or putting it in this sort of space, here are some of the adjustments I need to make as well. But the main ones, I think, from just the top level perspective, are understanding yourself, understanding that how you work and how the values that you have, because a lot of these things, you can collect a million things in a toolbox or process box, but unless they align with who you are, it's going to be very tough to embody those over time. You're going to be getting, a lot of that that knowledge overload, but not a lot of integration. And that's can be very, very frustrating. I'm sure all of us at some point have taken like too many courses, and then it's not really resonating because that person's strategy is maybe not, it may be very good, but it's not quite aligned with how we process or how we work. So, and that's okay. That's why there's an abundance of people, an abundance of products, an abundance of options that we can have, and we can continue to innovate based on the people who need something new, right? And you can be another voice in that space or another way of doing it, because there's no one way, there's no best way. Best doesn't exist. Best, it's you're one of the greats, right? It's never the best, because the best is limiting. The best doesn't exist. Who decides who's the best? Unless you're getting Olympic gold medals and you have a specific set of criteria, it's limiting to say that you're the best. You want to be really, really fantastic. That's something that you probably should want to say, because I notice a lot of people too, they will say that they want to be the best. And I can see sometimes when I put like out a process, there's the part of me that's like, oh, I want to do all these things because, you know, I want to be the best at this, or I want to be the best at this, and I want to hire the best at this. And the truth is there's no best. It's just you. So just an aside thought. So this is a bit about the process, and I got a little more into it than I thought, but I just felt compelled because it's something that it seems very simple, but when you break it down, it is quite helpful, especially now. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm creating this resource or the space, this hub, where I'm putting a lot of resources and practices and pulling in some conversations and other opportunities so that you can work on the strategy behind building out this innovation process that's uniquely yours, and giving you the tools to try things out, right? And everything that's there is not going to be for you. I am the queen of experimentation and engaging with products and things and ideas. So I love being in the midst of it. And there's so many things that I find so much value in, but at the time maybe aren't the correct thing for me, or the correct practice, or the correct whatever, but I love having it in my toolbox. And I think that's how I kind of see this as well, is it's like there's a toolbox, there's a set of resources for you, but with the understanding that you can build it into this framework and adjust it over time as needed, because your tools are going to change for many, many reasons. And in this space for everyday innovation, which is, it's not just, I have a podcast, but I'm returning there. And then also there's a hub that I just launched, very, very new, very nascent. So you are like a true innovator, you want to launch a little bit before you think you want to, because you want to get that feedback. You want to get people magnetized and on it and communicating. And this hub is there to start providing those resources and to also provide community for innovators. So the community aspect is incredibly important, because again, this is about the self process, but in the end, the real collective impact is when we can come together, and it's not just double it, it's, you know, quadruple, 10 times it, just because we're in the same space and sharing valuable ideas and valuable new ways of doing things. So I'm going to see if it didn't play last time very well. So I'm going to just try one more time to see if it'll just give you a little preview. Oh, good. Okay, so it's playing it a little bit. So this is just tiny little previews of, it's everydayinnovation.io. And this is going to be the little hub. You can create bookmarks if you're a subscriber. There are going to be links to the podcast. There'll be links to community pages if you are subscribed. So there's the free subscription, which is literally just signing up, and you're a member on there. You can see all posts, you can see subscriber level content. So there'll be extras that are not just public. So if you go into the page, you're not just seeing everything that I want to give to, like, you know, the people who sign up and who are more active and not just creeping on the site, right? But yeah, so there will be those resources. There's the community, and then I do have a paid tier that's really in beta, but the first 21 people that sign up just for free, I'm just gonna give them the access, the constellation access. So over time, that's going to be just more in-depth content, potentially some like audio content or extended content for some of the posts or other media, or access to audience for recording podcast. Yeah, I mean, just there are lots of options, but there is a group or a space, two spaces actually, one on Discord and one on Circle, that they have the Galaxy area, and they also have, which is the free subscribers, and also ones for the Constellation members. So that's pretty cool because you get to connect with other people, and I've been very intentional with my choice of platforms. In anything, by the way, like the site that I built this on, anything that I'm using, I'm very aware of the platforms because they are pro creator and pro, let's say, protection of your ideas and protection of community and protection of content in general. So these aren't places where things are being monetized. So of course I use social media. Obviously I'm on social media right now, but I do want to say that a lot of these choices were made very specifically, and the community one I invested in a bit more by having Discord, and then Circle is a monetized paid product, and that's something that the space that I wanted to invest in and create for the community, because I do see a very bright future of lots of community leadership, community opportunities where it's way beyond me just pulling together resources for you or designing stuff. It's much, much bigger. I really just want to open a channel of new types of innovation within the creator and individual industry, and magnetize those people who feel called to lead into to even potentially create content at some point together. I would absolutely love that. So I'm a very open source collaborative type person, so that's why the community aspect is very important to me, and I think that you'll enjoy that space as well. So this is just a little bit about everyday innovation. So there's going to be a lot more that's added over time. It's just everydayinnovation.io, and then if you subscribe, you will get access to the communities, you'll get access to more content, and you'll get the invites to those communities as well. And of course, like I said, if you are within the first 21 that I have, then those people will be upgraded to the constellation level, just because I'm a fan of early adopters, because they're the ones who see potential in something ahead of time. And usually that's a great, great trait for innovation, is being able to look at something and see potential and see opportunity for it to grow, and you want to be a part of it, right? So that is really kind of, I think, everything I was going to cover. But really, I just want to say thank you for being here today with me. It was really fun to kind of get to show you what is going on in my own process right now, and to be able to share that with other people, and not just be creating for me. It's creating for all of us, and you being able to create with me, right? And I'm very, very excited about the potential future of how this could build out. But I just want to leave you with, I hope that you can reflect on the incredible impact that you're able to have, and that no matter what you think, you are a creator, you have incredibly valuable insight that no one else has. And there is a lot of untapped potential. I know for most people, there's some untapped potential in that process. And I hope to help you uncover that and magnetize the right resources for you and the right people in the community, so that you can be your most authentic, impactful, amazing self. So I just wanted to come on and share that with you today. Thank you for being with me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you in the future on here, or hopefully in our community. I would love to see you there. So have a wonderful day. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye, guys.